Hey guys, it's the Conic, and we're going to be going over the build that is most likely to be my league starter for 3.28 Mirage League, and that is Dominating Blue Necromancer. Now, before we get into the POB, I want to quickly touch a bit on why you should consider playing deep Dominating Blue yourself, and also the portions of the build that are most likely to be deal breakers for others in case they are for you. Now, why should you run Dominating Blue? Firstly, Dominating Blow is a very efficient skill that can carry you through all your Atlas progression with minimal investment, while also having the scaling power to get you all the way to Ubers with investment. Now, because of the efficiency, you're going to notice that my setups end up being very tanky, especially for the money spent at any point in time, because we can get away with being as defensive focused as we currently are and still have ridiculous amounts of damage to show for it. Now, on the why you should not run Dominating Blow portion, the biggest turnoff I see for the vast majority would be the actual league mechanic and how it works, because according to GGG, the Mirage zones, which show in every map, are new instances, and as such will start you off having to resummon your Dominating Blow every single time that you enter the zone. Now, of course, you can leave them to the end or do whatever else that makes it easier and less of a hassle. And keep in mind, it's also not even that much of a hassle to resummon them because it's pretty quick, and things tend to die when you have that much GPS even to your support minion. So like, it's not a big deal, but it's a thing. So just keep that in mind. Now, another notable downside is going to be that we take advantage of the Chaos Bloodline in this build. And while Trial Master can be completed in a T1 map, and that is basically a non-issue, but the actual ascendancy and what it requires from us is to corrupt items, and this includes res in our case, and this opens up the possibility of breaking potential upgrades. So, you know, just keep that in mind, that this is a part of the progression, and you know, it could happen. But anyways, without further ado, let's talk about the POBs, as I have prepared several to basically guide you through Act 1 to Ubers. And we're going to be starting with the high budget, so I can talk a bit about the different mechanics that are in the build to really give you a holistic view of what to expect. Now, for the high budgets, we are, like I said, we're going to be going for the Chaos Bloodline. So we're going to actually be taking advantage of the Corruption's Embrace. And the reason we use this is because of Shepherd of Souls and Everlasting Sacrifice. Shepherd of Souls is a must-have. It basically makes it so your Vow Dominating Blow only costs about 6 souls to cast for the first big guy, and then the next one costs like 12, and then the next 18. Basically, it makes it cost less souls, and by costing less souls, you're able to more easily sustain perma uptime on all of them. You could skip this, but not having this will bite you in the butt when it comes to bossing and every new zone, because then you have to gather more souls before you start summoning your Dominating Blow. So this is a very nice utility node, especially when you pair it with Soulwick Runegraft, which should give you some Vow souls every second to just ease your bossing ability to, because that is the biggest downside, I guess, when it comes to Dominating Blow gameplay in any case. Now, that is why we are going Chaos Bloodline. For our actual ascendancy, we're going Necromancer, and we're going to picking up Mindless Aggression and Leech, because Leech is very nice. And then we're going to picking up Mistress of Sacrifice. For offering, we're going to be running Bone Offering, so this allows us to get somewhere along the lines of 75% block and 62% spell block. And of course, Everlasting Sacrifice, I forgot to mention, what that does is it makes it so whenever your energy shield fills up, it goes back to 0, and you gain 5 max auras, including Chaos. It's very strong. And to sustain that energy shield recharge, we obviously have base energy shield recharge, but that is not enough, because when we take damage, that will stop. But we are also going to be employing Divine Shield. The idea behind Divine Shield is, while we have some armor that will help us regenerate that ES, the big strength of Divine Shield is blocked hits also count as preventing damage. Because we don't take any damage from block, whenever we block a physical hit, the entire damage that the hit was going to do, we will regenerate 3% of it via Divine Shield. So that should be very nice, very healthy amount of ES regen. I'm still going to be playing around this. There is every possibility that I will drop every armor ES hybrid base and just go for pure armor. and then just to reduce the amount of ES we have, because then the lower the raw ES number, the easier it is to fill with the divine shield essentially. But there's going to be a sweet spot. I don't know where that sweet spot is going to be. We're going to be finding it out when we play it. Then for the actual nitty-gritty, we are going to be dual wielding a Fireborn Severed in Sleep and a rare Anarchic Spirit Blade, which is basically just going to be rare, crafted with hits can be evaded and trigger. And it's a very straightforward sword. You just need enough currency for the base, which we're going for Fractured, Veiled, minion attack speed, minion cast speed, which is going to be a natural drop possibility for those running June. But not on this base type. I should change the base type, but you can drop, they can now drop swords that will have that mod Fractured essentially. Then we're going to be running this with the Fireborn Severed in Sleep. The Fireborn Severed in Sleep, the reason we run this is because of the minions have 5% to critical strike chance. It's a very big modifier being able to scale base crit. And as you can see, and in this build, we are actually scaling a lot of crits. You will notice that my Vowed Dominating Blow, or my Dominating Blows, have close to 100% crit chance due to the base crit and all our crit scaling. Ancient Skull gives us increased critical strike chance per max power charge, and we scale a bit of max power charge, gets I think 5. So that is an easy 50% for each, which is an easy 250. And then we get the Corrupted Implicit for 1 more to get us to 300% increased crit, which is a very, very nice boost to our crit. Everything else here is it's our defenses, offenses, or a mix of both. One thing to note about the corrupted items you'll be going for, every single unique is going to be corrupted. And the idea here is you're going to be buying them corrupted and you're going to be buying good rolls as well. So by buying them corrupted, you don't stand the chance of breaking it. Now for the rest that we are going to be corrupted, we're going to keep it to the things that are going to be the easiest to craft. So stuff like your sword is going to be easy, so long as it's not too expensive of a base. If the bases end up being expensive, then we'll probably shift the sword craft to something else. But for now, it shouldn't be too expensive. So there's going to be sword craft, there's going to be the unique crafts that are going to be corrupted. Then you can decide to corrupt your glove and boots. Your gloves should not be expensive to craft, but your boots, they'll be slightly expensive. So maybe not boots. Bone Meld, again, uniques all corrupted, and then rings. This one of them should not be, and the one that is going to be cheaper is the Bone Ring. If you go for a Fractured minion damage ring, then you can decide to pivot and corrupt a glove, which I don't think this one is corrupted. Yeah, they should be cheaper than the ring. But that is the general theme along all the POBs. You're going to be trying to corrupt the cheaper items to get, and the more expensive ones for the rares, you're going to try to leave alone. And then for uniques, you're going to be buying them corrupted, or you take the risk of corrupting it yourself. I wouldn't recommend it, especially with items like Mageblood. Just buy corrupted, save yourself a lot of headache. Then we are going for Rational Doctrine for Consecrated Groundflares for life regen. If you want to, you can actually go for 8 corrupted items and go for the final passive on this Ascendancy. I wouldn't recommend it simply because of the amount of risk that comes with it. But if you want to min-max, that is always an option to you. That is a very strong node. It reduces your life regen, but makes it so you gain basically an extra life pool above your life pool, and that's just insane. But again, I wouldn't really recommend it, but if that's your speed, then go for it. Then Watcher's Eye, important here is to have physical damage reduction, and then mana recovery rate is nice to have because we want as much mana regen as possible. There are other options. You can go for the second mod, but the non-negotiable is physical damage reduction. Then we have Immutable Force for stun immunity, basically, or pseudo stun immunity. Forbidding Flesh and Flame so that we can pick up Natural Strength. This is a very important ascendancy, and I would not drop it. What I would do for the Forbidding Flesh and Flame is you can actually pick anyone you want. So you go for the cheapest between 1, 2, and 3. Those are the 3 options. Now, in the ideal universe, you're going to keep Mistress of Sacrifice because it has increased skill effect duration on the small node. But if this ends up being cheaper than this and this, then you go for Mistress of Sacrifice, Forbidding Flesh and Flame. And then if unnatural strength is the cheapest, go for it. If bone barrier is the cheapest, go for it. Just go for whichever forbidden flesh and flame ascendancy is the cheapest, and then spec the other ones naturally. That is going to be your plan for the forbidden flesh and flames. And then a 12 passive cluster that has 35% increased effect and 3% attack speed with life. You can go for vicious bite, it's kind of optional, but it's a very nice notable to have. For the skills themselves, I was going to explain this, so I might as well do it now. POB does not have support for showing imbued skills, so we are going to be kind of showing it in a different way. We can't use imbued skills for Vow skills because on the Vow skills, they are already corrupted, and imbues are a different kind of corruption, so you can't actually imbue Dominating Blow. But for example, we can imbue Life Tap on Bone Offering, and the way you would see a skill that is a support gem that is imbued is check the level. If it's 1 and quality is 0, odds are it is an imbue for the level 20 gem in the setup. Do I have any other examples? Yes, here. Melee Splash is an imbue, it's 1 and 0. For which one? Ray Spectre is already corrupted, it's level 21, so therefore it can only go on Animate Guardian. This is just how the POBs are going to be set up, so it's going to be easier to tell. Once POB actually adds the support to manually put imbue, I will be updating it to show it in that better way. And then this is another example. Chaos Golem of the Maelstrom has Feeding Frenzy imbued. How do you see it? It's level 1, 0, boom, easy. This is obviously not a support gem, so it wouldn't count, if that helps. But yeah, and then for Spectres, we're going to be going for Perfect Forest Warrior for Onslaught and Calling. We don't really need Calling Strike, but for Onslaught, we're going to be going for Perfect. So let me just show you how to check. Here, you go navigate to Ray Spectre, and you see all of them here. Perfect Guardian Turtle for Determination Aura and to activate our Watcher's Eye for the physical damage reduction, as well as the armor just for more physical damage mitigation. Then Perfect Warlords are source of endurance charges, Carnage Shifting a source of frenzy charges, and Host Shifting a source of power charges. These two very strong. If the longer the fight goes, the better they are, but in most cases they might not be able to get to 3 charges, which is why I have config 2. Then that's for Ray Spectre. For the Animate Guardian himself, we are going to be going for a Kingmaker because we are scaling crits, which would give us fortification, crit multi, calling strike, all of that good stuff, and then item rarity. And then on his helmet, we're going to be giving him a Crown of the Tyrant, so he can give my nearby allies flat chaos. It's going to be white socket. He's going to have a Grotcall spell for the 10% life regen. You can also consider a Doppelganger's Guise, but I personally prefer the 10% regen on the Grotcall spell because it's permanent. But that being said, you know, both are options, both are valid options. Then Farborn Arsenath is going to give us punishments. It's also going to give us Explode, which is why we go for Melee Splash on the Animate Guardian. And then finally Windscream to allow him to actually apply the curse without overwriting our curse. And past that, everything else is kind of self-explanatory. It's just a regular tree. We scale some endurance charges, we scale some crits, we go for Soul Wake, nothing else out of the ordinary. But that's the high budgets in a nutshell. If you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing as it helps the channel out a lot. Before we quite hop to the leveling budget, I do want to explain something in the config which might confuse people, and that is this Chaos Golem of the Maelstrom. The reason we use Chaos Golem of the Maelstrom is because his quality can actually apply increased wither effect, basically. So his wither is more potent than wither applied by any other minion. And as such, we're going to be relying on his aura to apply some of the wither. But because it takes him quite a bit of time to ramp up the wither, basically 1 wither every second, it is unrealistic to think a boss will be fully ramped up with wither. And as such, we basically cut that in half to basically give him like, I think 7.5-ish seconds to give the boss basically 7 seconds to 8 seconds of wither, which is 22% increase effect. Basically I cut it in half to account for downtime instead of, you know, increasing the entire wither effect. So just putting it out there, that is a part of the config. You can adjust this as necessary. but it is a very strong multiplier. Having Chaos Golem of Maelstrom apply some stronger Wither stacks. And in case you're wondering about uptime, the Chaos Golem of the Maelstrom actually applies an 8-second duration Wither, but his skill has 100% reduced Wither expiry rate or something along those lines. I can pull it up real quick. So it has an 8-second base duration, and with that you inflict expires 100% slower. So it's not actually 8 seconds, it's more along the lines of 16 seconds that his Wither lasts, which is basically if you leave him for 16 seconds, he'll have a full set of 15 stacks of Wither applied with the increased effect. But again, it's just because of the amount of time that would take that we have decided to cut that effect down to half to just account for that. So basically the idea is half of it will be from Maelstrom, half of it from other minions to give you an average DPS. Now let's move on to the other setups. For the leveling, this is going to be your typical Act 1 through 10. You're going to be starting off with Rolling Magma, and then if anything is in red, it means you're going to be dropping it. If it's in green, it means you're going to be keeping it for a bit. And then anything past the mid changes will be going by the end of the act and probably being replaced by something else. In this case, Rolling Magma is going to be used until you get SRS. Then SRS will be removed once you get Absolution. And then you have your Holy Flame Totem, Flame Wall, which would be removed once you drop Holy Flame Totem or when you need sockets, whichever comes first. And then you have your Act 2. You can use this to quickly switch between acts. So you move the gem and the skill tree. Just keep in mind that there's no gem section for Act 6. So you would have to manually change that down here on the skill tree to see all the acts. So Act 2 it shows you all the skill tree nodes you're going to be taking, as well as the gem setups. Act 3, same thing here. You're going to be dropping Absolution because this is where we finally get Dominating Blow. You're also going to be, checking the notes as this says, because there's important information about level 20 gems there. Just keep in mind. And then we're going to be rushing resolute techniques so that we do not need to scale accuracy to hit with Dawn Blow, because it's very important that we hit in order to apply the debuff, which would allow us to summon Dominating Blow easily. And so on and so forth. It's very straightforward actually. And then whenever you get support specters, if you do want to get use support specters, you can be using Carnage Shifting and Host Shiftings. But I like to use permanent DPS specters like Hyri's Watch, just to make it so I don't have to press anything except Convocation from pack to pack to pack. Makes campaign very, very quick. Then for the low budget, for this setup, we have switched to complete support specters. So we're going to be using Frenzy Charge Monkey, so 2 Carnage Shiftings and 1 Host Shifting. And if you have space for the 4th, then you go the 2nd Frenzy Charge Monkey. But you're not going to be going any Affliction Specters, no Spectre you have to buy or anything like that. You're just keeping it simple, just getting charges from our monkeys, essentially. As you can see, from low budget with basically 1 mod items to 2 mod items, you were able to pull out 6 mil DPS, which is quite insane. The things to keep in note: A, this does scale poison, so you're going to want to have chance to poison on your Ghastly Eye Jewels, and you're going to want to have chance to poison support, which is already here. We're not using any imbues because that is probably going to be more expensive than a low budget can afford, unless you drop yourself and you're feeling spicy and you want that on a Ray Spectre. But other than that, you're probably not going to be using any imbues. Jinx Juju to help us with DR, to transfer some damage to Spectres. Darkness and Throne for the Ghastly Eye Jewels for poison chance. Enduring Composure Small Cluster Jewel for a source of endurance charges, as well as max endurance charges for defenses. And then we're going for 6 life mastery, which helps us get a very healthy life pool. And one important thing to note is, unless you can get above a certain amount of max life, i.e. I think it's akin to like 120 flat life, you want to keep this clear of life modifier. So unless it's really good life, it's better to have no life whatsoever on the chest piece. So like if it's 100 life, don't buy it. Instead go for increased armor, ES nodes or whatever else, and go that way. We are also not going to be using Chaos Bloodline here, and the reason we are not is simply because I don't want to have to deal with it too early, so I'm planning around not having it. It does mean single target is going to be more awkward, but it's a price I'm willing to pay personally. If it actually becomes too annoying, then I will decide to still go for the Chaos Bloodline. But like I said at the start of the video, if you do it in T1, it's straightforward. I just don't want to have to deal with it too early, but that's a personal preference thing. Then for the medium budget, here we are still using very similar items, but now instead of a +1 level of all minion skill helmet, we're going for a +2. We're getting slightly better modifiers, and also very important, remember to cap your resistances and your attributes on all the open suffixes that I have left on the build. There are more than enough suffixes to cap everything, but do not forget to cap it, because dexterity is important, intelligence is important, and so is your resistances. Getting capped on res is important. And Chaos Res is not typically that important early on, but by the time you start pushing into red maps like tier 11, tier 12 maps, you want to have at least like 50% Chaos Res, or like thereabout in any case. So just remember, cap your reses. So anyways, now instead of 2 mod items, we're looking for a bit more, 3 mods. For the chest piece, you don't need fractured specters, you just need specters with good prefixes, and then you can freely craft the suffixes using Eldritch currency, and you're kind of chilling. Then this is where we start using the Chaos Bloodline, which is why you can now see corrupted items. Like I said, the gloves are on the cheaper side, so gloves are going to be corrupted. The weapon at this point is going to be easily to reproduce, but it's not going to be that cheap because it uses a divine multi-mod craft. But it's the easiest to reproduce. If it breaks, you can kind of make a different one, so just keep that in mind, that it is going to be on the corrupted list if you're going for 6 corrupt. If you're going for 4 corrupts, you can skip it, but I would recommend 6 corrupts simply because then you have you would have much higher max hits for non-physical damage. Then for Watcher's Eye, we're going to be using, again, just the 1 mod physical damage reduction. I'm going to be using Guardian Turtle to get the Determination aura for this. We are going to not be taking, or going to be dropping Missions of Sacrifice to pick up the Chaos Bloodline. So we have to make up that block somehow. And the way we do that, we are going to be using a Red Nightmare here, because it is going to check all the amount of fire resistances we get in its radius, and it's going to give us attack block equal to half of those values. So we get all early res here, which counts as 3% fire res. So getting 1.5% block chance here. PoE rounds down, so 1%. This is 5. Half of that is 2.5. PoE rounds down, 2%, etc. They're going to be anointing these with 6% fire res to give us 3% block chance each tattoo, which is how we get very healthy amounts of block chance. We're also going to be running block chance here to get a very decent amount of more aid attack block. And if we really wanted to, we could still run this one, but like then that'd be level 99 character, and that's not easy to do on the, I guess, on the medium budget. I don't want to plan around it, but if you do get past 96, those are where you'd probably want to put points in next, or you put points for more damage, up to you. We're also going to be running a Fortress Covenant just for more minion damage, nothing serious. Enduring Composure like the last one, Ghastly Eye Joe for poison chance like the last time. Everything else, all in all, very straightforward. We don't drop poison until we're ready to go crits, and that means we will be ready to go dual wield swords. And because we go dual wield swords, we have to figure out blocking a different way, which is why Mistress of Sacrifice becomes very important. That's why we do the Forbidden Flesh and Flame to get block chance here, and then we also pick up some extra block nodes and do all of that. But anyways, I think that about covers everything I wanted to talk about on the Dominating Blow setup. As usual, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop in the comment section. I'll be answering everything. If you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing, as it helps the channel out a lot. During league starts, like always, we're going to be live for unhealthy amounts of time. So if you're running into any issues or you have any questions, feel free to stop by and ask. Don't be shy. And with all that said, thank you for watching.